welcome back. It's been a whopping 15 seconds for me since the last video. I figured I'd just split it there. Long videos lose people's attention span, I get it. So I broke it into 2 shorter videos, but in this one, we're going to get the barrel trunnion welded in. We're going to get the cocking tube welded in. As you can see, I've taken the liberty and sandblasted that and the trunnion. So know that no gunk is going to be stuck in there when I go to parkerize it. That's the last thing I need is grease in that tank. But we're going to get this thing finished out. So weld the trunnion, weld the cocking tube. Obviously we're going to be spacing that for cocking tube gap. So it's like your bolt gap plus 15 thou. But we got to have the bolt in and everything. So we'll get there when we get there. But first I think we're going to drill some holes in this receiver here. So we can get the trunnion welded in. So first things first, drilled some holes. These are 3/16. These are just shy of a quarter. 3 here. These 3 here are replicated from where they were on the trunnion. So got them as close as I could. Should be good enough. These ones should be mostly in a row. Why is there faces everywhere? Yeah, these ones should be pretty much in a row. But yeah, we just kind of hand drilled them, so not a big deal. There's those 3 on that side. So we plug weld these 3, and then weld the little happy guy closed there. Same on that side. So now's your last chance to do one more bolt drop test. I just did mine, everything's fine. And what we want to do is in there, make sure our rails are evenly spaced. So you can see the top line of that trunnion right there versus the rail. And make sure it's the same on both sides. With that, we can start our welding here. Weld number 1. I'm going to flip it over and do the same weld on the other side. go, that one finally looks good. Okay, so I'll go ahead and let those cool off, grind them down. So I did go ahead and weld up that seam there. You have to lay a bead down there and on the other side. Not pretty, but that's the way they are. So those welds are nice ground down. Those beads are done. This trunnion is solid. Next up would be the cocking tube. I've got the bolt in, fire control group in, hammered down on the back of the bolt as well. So my bolt gap is 18 thou plus 15 thou. That gives me 33 thou. So I need to put a 33 thou shim up here. Because essentially what we want is from the back of that cocking plunger to the bolt, we need just a little bit of gap there. Otherwise, you're never going to be able to wrench it open. So there's two sides of it. You either aren't going to have enough force to open the bolt up and release the lockers, or if you're too small, your bolt is going to beat the heck out of this piston and probably the cocking tube itself. So I'm going to try and find some stuff to add here for 33 thou. So we actually had some scrap steel that is actually exactly 33 thou. So I kind of cut it into a round shape. I'm just going to wedge it between the cocking extension of the bolt and that little cocking slug. Hang on a second, I'll get this thing mocked up. Okay, so after a long while of fiddling around, I finally have everything set. I've got a really large gap here, didn't really expect that. I thought it was too close, so I went and chucked this in the lathe and turned the shoulder back a little bit so it's square instead of the rough grinding. Turns out I shouldn't have done that because I got that giant gap, but I think I should be able to fill that with weld. I do have the front sight on as well, so what I did to align the front sight is hold the rear sight in position. It's not welded yet. Take the bolt out, look down the barrel, and then put a mark on the wall, probably about 20 feet away. And then, once I was happy with where that mark was through the barrel, I went through and aligned my front sight to be in that same spot. So just clocked it around the barrel the same. And the front sight should not be pushed in all the way to the cocking tube. It should be probably a little less than halfway through. Make sure you can still fit that cleaning cap in. Make sure the handguard locks in nice and tight. One more thing before you go to weld is make sure that this hole underneath here, you have enough room to push that pin in and out. Because if you don't, you're not going to be able to get this lever in and out ever again. So with that said, I think we are ready to weld. I think I'm going to take another look at the sights, make sure everything is good, and then I'm going to start just tacking this through. So we don't want to get through the inner wall there. We just want to put some tacks on it to make sure it's going to stay put. And then we're going to insert a aluminum rod instead of the bolt for the weld backer. We don't want to go too deep with the welds right now with just the bolt in there, because if we go too deep, we're not going to be able to get the bolt back out. So let's go nice and gentle. I don't want to put too much heat in this, especially now that I only have the tube to weld to. This ain't going to be fun. Tack. Okay, I got it tacked in a couple spots, didn't burn through. Nice. Double checked my front sight position, happy with that. So what I did is I turned down a metal rod, same diameter as, or aluminum rod, the same diameter as the inside of the cocking tube. And we're going to use that as our weld backer. So now I can go full hot, not full hot, but hot enough where I can actually get some good bite into that metal. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Be right back. Well, I got it. Not the way I was expecting it to happen, though. So I didn't actually have a giant gap here. What happened is the little shim I was using was getting cocked sideways in here, turning sideways, so it's giving me a much larger space. Well, not really much, maybe like a 1/16 or maybe a 3/32 more than I should have. So when I pulled everything out, double checked it, I put the bolt back in without the shim, and I had like a lot of play through here. So I knew something wasn't right, so luckily enough I was able to just cut those tacks off, restart it over, making sure that that shim was seated fully in the front. Redid it, retacked it, took the bolt back out, took the bolt back out, took the shim out, put the bolt back in, and then I just had my, really small 15 thou of play between that and the bolt all the way forward. So with that, I welded everything back up. Now I'll go ahead and grind that down. Yeah, then we should be pretty much good to go here. So I got it all clocked nicely so I can still get that pin out. Because if you see, this is floppy. I broke that spring, so I just had to place a $15 order for Apex. I couldn't really think of anything else I needed. It was a $3 spring with $12 shipping. So it is what it is. I want to get this thing done. I wasn't going to fight it. So got a new spring coming, fix that floppy thing. But that should be about it, besides welding on the rear sight, which once I grind this down, that's what we'll do next. So I'll go ahead and grind this down. I'm not going to record it. You know how grinding works. On to the rear sight now. I don't know how exactly I'm going to weld this, but that's pretty much where it should be placed. With the stock on, it's about a 1/4 inch gap from pictures I've seen of originals. So that's about as close as I can probably get it. I've got it clamped to a aluminum 3/4 inch bar on the inside for the backer. And then basically I just have to weld a seam down each side. That's kind of a problem with the position I'm in right now. I don't know if I can weld TIG like that very well. So I'm going to try and reclamp this without it moving. To get this aligned, I just basically lined it up with the center of the receiver, and I bore sighted to a spot on the wall about 20 feet away, and then I made sure that the sight lines up with that spot on the wall. It's mostly with the front sight and how that's clocked. I think I got it clocked pretty darn good right now, but rear sight obviously needs to be centered on the receiver as well. So I'm gonna go ahead and try and get this thing clamped down a little better for a more advantageous welding position. This is about as good of a position as I can get, unfortunately. I'm gonna go ahead and carefully tack this down, the front and rear corners, see if I can not get it to move. My receiver is a bit more round than the original was, so these welds are going to be bigger, unfortunately. Shouldn't be too terrible with the TIG though. Yeah, let me go ahead and readjust here. Let's see how this goes on the other side here. Got the clamp in the way, but should be able to make it work. Osmoline smoking out on that. Let's see how we look. Well, you probably can't tell because it's blurry, but looking down sights, rear sight looks a little tipped that way to me, so I'm gonna go ahead and cut it off and re-tack it in a better position, I hope. Let's give this a whirl. Well, I feel like that went a whole lot worse than it should have, but I did get it welded on. Both sides look pretty decent. You know, there's a big fat weld there. I sandblasted it just so it looks a little better. But you can tell I did tack the middle, and I did end up breaking the insert thing that goes in here. So that said, I got to get a new one of those, but happy with how the sight welded on. It's nice and straight now. But yeah, that's really it. So I'm going to assemble this and let's have a look at it. Well, here it is. All done. I did attach the front sight post with that pin right there. Just drilled it out to, I think it was a number 6. And then I also silver soldered it on just to make sure it didn't rotate. So I just did put the pin in, drilled it out, and then just tack welded it on the back side. But there she is. Looks great. Just need to get some new rear sight parts. And we're good to go. Do a little test fire. And once I can ensure that it works, then I'll sandblast everything and parkerize it. But for now, we are done. The only thing I gotta do now is load some 308. I haven't had any time to reload anything, but now I'll have to, so I gotta get this thing going. So that should be it for now. Thanks for watching. Let's see you at the test fire.